Welcome to the deep dive. We are opening up the files today on a figure whose career trajectory, well, really reflects the complex and often pretty brutal reality of modern celebrity in the UK. We're talking about the English television presenter Caroline Flack.
Hmm.
Her story is one of, spectacular professional highs, like record-breaking achievements in entertainment, but intertwined with these really profound personal struggles, all lived out under the microscope of the public eye.
That's exactly right. And for you listening, our mission today is, well, it's straightforward, but it's pretty critical. We want to move beyond the sound bites, beyond those sensational headlines.
Yeah.
We're synthesizing a huge factual record here, drawing just from a comprehensive source profile to really try and understand the full, nuanced arc of her life.
Okay.
We need to look at her diverse professional achievements, the documented reality of her personal battles, and importantly, the significant legal and public conversation that erupted after her death. The focus is like speed and synthesis, getting you that 360-degree view of her impact.
And just before we dive into her professional timeline, there's this small detail, but I think it immediately grounds her story, reminds us of the human behind the celebrity.
Hmm.
She was born Caroline Louise Flack in Enfield, London, November 9, 1979. She was the youngest of 4 kids, and she actually had a twin sister, older by just 6 minutes.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize she was a twin.
Yeah, and knowing she came from this, larger family unit, it provides this essential contrast, I think, to the isolation and the really intense scrutiny she faced later on.
Right.
A star who spanned everything from niche comedy sketches, winning a massive dance competition, and then hosting Love Island, one of the UK's absolute biggest cultural phenomena.
Okay, so let's unpack how this pretty incredible career got started.
Right, let's begin with those formative years. So she was born in London, but her childhood really unfolded mostly in Norfolk.
Okay.
The family moved from Enfield first to Thetford, and then later on to East Wreatham when Caroline was about 7 years old.
And this move, it sort of reflected her father's job success. He started out as a Coca-Cola sales rep, but then got promoted into management. So it suggests, background of stability, maybe some professional ambition in the household.
Yeah, and that ambition, it seems like it rubbed off on Caroline pretty quickly. The source material really highlights this early, quite intense interest she had in performing arts. She went to Great Hockham Primary School and then Wayland High School. But even then, she was already deep into dancing, performing in local village pantomimes all the time. It clearly wasn't just a hobby. It felt like her calling.
Exactly. And that early passion, it led her to get formal training, which is, I think, crucial context for her later success on screen.
Definitely.
From 1996 to 1999, she studied dancing and musical theater at the Bodywork Company in Cambridge. So this foundation, it proves she was professional trained, dedicated to the physical, the artistic demands of performing, long before she ever stepped onto a TV set.
But the source material also gives us this really striking detail from that time, one that kind of foreshadows the internal pressures she'd battle for years.
What's that?
While she was training at Bodywork Company, she actually received medical treatment because she was underweight.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and that's significant because it shows that really early on, before the stress of national fame even hit these intense pressures related to physical appearance, body image, the demands of performing, they were already taking a heavy personal toll.
That's quite telling. And what's truly fascinating about how her career actually launched, especially given that rigorous musical theater training,
Yeah.
is how unorthodox it was. You'd maybe expect a West End debut or something similar, right?
Sure.
But her professional TV career kicked off in 2002 on the sketch show Beau Selecta.
Right, Beau Selecta.
And not just any role. She played a fictionalized version of Michael Jackson's actual pet chimpanzee, Bubbles.
It's almost surreal, isn't it? As a starting point for someone who'd later be, nominated for NTAs as a presenter, what does that tell us? I mean, it suggests she was adaptable.
Right.
Willing to embrace the absurdity of early 2000s UK comedy.
Yeah, and maybe just willing to take an indie job that got her on TV.
Yeah.
It speaks volumes about hustle, I think.
Largely hustle.
And after that, she quickly shifted into presenting roles that showed her diverse interests. She did the International Pepsi Chart Show, then a short-lived show called Fash FC.
Right.
She even had a regular bit on a video game show, When Games Attack, back in 2005. She was just popping up everywhere, building that versatile skill set you need for live, quick turnaround telly.
The real proving ground, though, arguably, was children's television. That seems to be where she really honed that mainstream, quick-witted style.
Absolutely. From 2006 to 2008, she co-presented the really popular Saturday morning show TMI with Sam and Mark. That was on BBC Two and the CBBC channel at the same time.
And kids' TV, it demands such high energy, doesn't it? You've got to be able to improvise, connect instantly with the audience. It's kind of a high-stakes environment where any mistake gets amplified.
Totally. Mastering that genre was key for her progression. She followed TMI up by hosting this adventure show, Escape from Scorpio Island, with Reggie Yates. That really cemented her as a fixture in family broadcasting.
And once she had that foundation, she made that, well, tactical jump, didn't she, to adult reality TV. In 2008, she hosted Big Brother's Big Mouth. Now, that was a crucial transition. And a journalist from the Daily Mirror specifically noted her performance, praising her sharp delivery, and actually calling her the best presenter they've had on this series.
See, that endorsement highlights that she'd found her niche.
Yeah.
Smart, kind of opinionated commentary on reality TV.
Yeah.
And this was solidified even more when she co-presented the reboot of Gladiators for 2 series around this time, leading into that athletic, high-energy appeal she had. She was building this undeniable reality TV portfolio.
But if you're charting her rise in this early phase, you absolutely cannot ignore maybe the most unique line on her CV.
Go on.
In 2009, she lands this major RTV reality gig hosting I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and Now W. But at the same time, she decides to actually participate in BBC Three's Dancing on Wheels with her partner, James O'Shea.
Ah, yes, Dancing on Wheels.
And they won.
And that win, it's so much more than just a celebrity charity trophy. Dancing on Wheels involves competitive wheelchair dancing. It requires incredible fitness, dedication, precision.
Yeah.
Their victory actually qualified them to represent Great Britain in the 2009 Wheelchair Dancing European Championships. They went to Tel Aviv.
No way.
Yes, and they finished 16th in their category.
That is genuinely astonishing. It really showcases a level of competitive drive that I think often gets overlooked when we just talk about her celebrity status. It's an insight into that discipline she must have carried over from her musical theater training, you know? That dedication to mastering something, even a highly specialized, non-mainstream sport. It adds this fascinating layer to her personality, beyond just the usual celebrity host thing.
It certainly does. So by the time this foundational decade closed out, around 2010, she was a genuine, multifaceted celebrity. She presented backstage at the Brit Awards that year, showing her closeness to the music industry elite. And she even modeled for Maxim magazine the same year. So this whole period, it really established her as this adaptable, high-energy professional, totally ready for the biggest stages British TV had to offer.
Okay, so as we move into the 2010s, Caroline Flack's career just accelerates massively. She goes from being, a well-known presenter to being right inside the UK's most powerful television franchises.
And that phase really kicks off with the X Factor, doesn't it? Her collaboration with Ollie Murs became, well, one of the defining partnerships of her career.
Yeah, definitely.
She started hosting the ITV2 spinoff, The Extra Factor, in 2011. She replaced Connie Huck, and Ollie Murs was her co-host.
And their chemistry was just immediate, wasn't it? You could feel it. What made that pairing so successful, based on what we know, it seems like it was her, that sharp delivery we heard about earlier.
Yeah.
Combined with Ollie's sort of easygoing boy-next-door charm. They were relatable, fun. They provided that perfect light relief you needed after the intense drama of the main show.
Absolutely. They were so successful they came back for the 9th series together.
Right.
And even when Ollie left for a bit, Flack actually stayed on, co-hosting Series 10 with Matt Richardson before they both eventually moved on from Extra Factor.
But that professional relationship with Murs, it was so strong it went beyond just the show, didn't it? The sources mentioned they reunited briefly to host, like, a Christmas Day and New Year's Eve show on Magic Radio in December 2014.
Yeah, it shows their rapport was, bankable. It was a commodity outside of just the big reality TV machine.
Then came the absolute biggest professional leap. April 2015, the announcement kind of rocked British TV. Flack and Murs were going to replace the much-loved, long-standing host Dermot O'Leary for the 12th series of the main X Factor show.
That is just an enormous promotion. But wow, the risk involved. It carried this inherent, almost crushing risk.
How so?
Well, Dermot O'Leary was basically synonymous with the show's golden years, right? Replacing an icon like that creates instant comparison, huge media pressure. So while it signaled she'd reached the absolute top tier of light entertainment hosting,
Yeah.
it was also arguably one of the most stressful jobs on British TV at that moment.
And ultimately, maybe that pressure contributed to how short it was. They hosted just the one season, the 12th series, and then both confirmed they wouldn't be back for the 13th series in February 2016.
Right. And in a pretty telling turn of events, O'Leary came back shortly after.
Yeah. So that period, it really highlights the volatility of primetime hosting, doesn't it? How even reaching the absolute pinnacle doesn't guarantee stability at all.
But what's really important to remember here is that just before this intense, short-lived run on the main X Factor stage, she achieved something completely different. Arguably her greatest and maybe most personal professional triumph.
Ah, you're talking about Strictly.
Exactly. Winning Strictly Come Dancing in 2014 with her partner, Pasha Kovalev.
And Triumph barely covers it, does it? The source material details this exceptional record-breaking performance. They didn't just win, they kind of redefined excellence on that show.
Totally. She got the first perfect score, 40 points, of that entire series during the semifinals for their salsa. Now, that alone would have been a career highlight for most celebrity contestants.
Definitely.
But here's where the analysis really needs to lean into the history of it. In the finals, the standards are incredibly high, right? Flack and Kovalev achieved something unprecedented. They earned 3 additional perfect scores of 40 for their final 3 dances.
3 more.
3 more, which resulted in a total final score of 120 points, a clean sweep of perfect scores in the final. That was a previously unmatched record in the entire history of Strictly.
Wow. And the judges' reaction, it wasn't just standard praise, was it? It was like awe.
Yeah. Bruno Tonioli called her a golden sex goddess for her cha-cha-cha, which is, classic Bruno.
Yeah.
But what really resonates is the artistry that Darcy Bussell recognized. She likened their show dance to watching a beautiful contemporary ballet. This wasn't just reality TV sparkle. This was technically brilliant, emotionally resonant dance.
And that Strictly win, it felt like a genuine pivot point in her career, didn't it? It sort of reaffirmed those roots in musical theater.
Yeah.
And gave her the confidence, the platform maybe, to pursue dramatic roles. The source material confirms that the momentum from that win really motivated her to get back on stage.
And she did, in quite significant productions too. She starred as Irene Roth in the touring production of Crazy for You in 2017. And then she took on the iconic role of Roxy Hart in Chicago at the Phoenix Theater in 2018. It shows his dedication to using her public profile to actually pursue genuine artistic challenges, linking the success of the Banter back to the dreams of that young performing arts student.
It's a great point. And crucially, while all this was happening, she took on the role that would probably permanently define her public image, presenting Love Island.
She started in 2015, the same year she took over the X Factor, actually.
And context is everything here. We learned that Love Island had been tried before, like a decade earlier on ITV, and it failed.
Yeah, it flopped.
So it wasn't a guaranteed hit when she joined. What did she bring that transformed this format into such a cultural behemoth?
Well, I think she brought credibility, energy, and this kind of knowing wink. You know? She treated the show with the right level of seriousness, like it was a huge pop culture event, which it became.
Right.
But she also maintained a lightness that allowed the audience to just enjoy the drama without maybe taking it too seriously. And under her stewardship, the growth was just exponential.
The numbers were huge.
Yeah, by 2018, the show was pulling in 4 million viewers. It cemented its status as the most watched show on the channel, fundamentally changing the landscape of British summer TV.
And the accolades followed the ratings, didn't they? She also presented the spin-off show, Love Island, After Sun, starting in 2017.
Yep.
And her success was officially recognized when she got nominated consecutively 4 times for Best Television Presenter at the National Television Awards. That spanned from 2017 right up until 2020. This period, it really represents her absolute professional peak, confirming her as a powerhouse of British reality television.
Okay, so now we really have to dive beneath the surface of those professional highs, because the source material paints this really clear, long-running picture of internal vulnerability that existed right alongside her fame.
Yeah, the records confirm she struggled with, well, severe long-term mental health issues. These included documented instances of attempting suicide and self-harming, specifically referenced as happening during her earlier years when she was a young presenter and actress. So this wasn't like a sudden reaction to one event. This was a persistent, decade-long battle.
And this internal struggle was just compounded by the very nature of her job. A TV producer, Anna Blue, offered this pretty stark assessment. She commented that Flack just wasn't emotionally wired to deal with all the problems that came with being famous.
Wow.
And a core problem noted in the sources was her inability to handle the inevitable constant criticism that comes with being a high-level celebrity. It suggests this deep sensitivity that just clashed violently with the demands of the modern media world.
And the depth of her commitment to trying to cope with these issues, it's evident in something that came out after her death.
Oh, what's that?
She was actually working on another book, a follow-up to her autobiography, Storm in a Sea-Cup.
Oh,
And this later project was apparently blending self-help aspects with personal stories, focusing heavily on how to maintain good mental health. It shows this active, conscious, and very public struggle to understand and manage her own psychological state while juggling these extraordinary professional demands.
and the pressure cooker was just massively exacerbated by her relationships, which were routinely dissected, analyzed, and often, frankly, vilified by the press.
Yeah.
The source material highlights several high-profile romances that were immediately compromised by that public scrutiny.
A key early example was when she briefly dated Prince Harry back in 2009. According to both their autobiographies, actually, the relationship ended really quickly because the moment the media started reporting on it, the public pressure just made it impossible to continue.
Right. It shows how just the simple act of trying to have a normal romantic life was immediately weaponized by her fame.
And the scrutiny often turned truly vicious. Her brief relationship with Harry Styles from One Direction in 2011, given their age difference, led to her enduring just astonishing public abuse. The sources document her being called a pedophile in the street. I mean, that just illustrates the extreme level of personal harassment and targeted abuse she faced simply for her relationship choices.
It's horrific. And the cycle continued with other public figures. She dated Sam Smith's manager, Jack Street, between 2014 and 2015, was briefly engaged to the reality TV personality Andrew Brady in 2018, and dated the rugby player Danny Cipriani in 2019.
Right. Each relationship just guaranteed a fresh wave of intrusion and commentary, keeping her private life permanently stuck in the public spotlight.
And this relentless personal pressure, it tragically culminated in that crisis point in late 2019. On December 13th, she was charged with assaulting her boyfriend at the time, the tennis player Lewis Burton, after an incident at her flat the previous morning.
The facts provided in the legal documents, they're pretty harrowing. When the police arrived at her flat, they found Flack covered in blood. The source details her immediate self-incriminating admission to the police. She said, "I did it. I whacked him around the head like that." And most disturbingly, tragically, she warned the police right then and there, upon their arrival, that she intended to kill herself. It was a direct, documented cry for help that just speaks volumes about her desperate state of mind at that moment.
And the later inquest provided more context. It found she hit and attacked Burton while he was sleeping. The motive, as found in the inquest, was her belief he was cheating. And Burton did sustain a head wound during the incident.
The immediate professional consequence was, well, inevitable, really. Just 4 days later, December 17th, 2019, she resigned from hosting Love Island. Her public statement said she was doing it to not detract attention from the upcoming series.
But the sources reveal a much deeper, more complex reality behind that departure. It was reported she was privately actually glad for the break. Yeah. The accumulated pressure of fame had just become too much. She'd apparently been suffering from personal issues and an emotional breakdown for a very long time. And while the show's producers assured her the door was open for her to return, the resignation offered this kind of desperate reprieve from the public intensity.
But despite the private struggles, despite the resignation, the judicial process just kept going. She pleaded not guilty to the assault charges on December 23rd, 2019. And a critical detail emerged right away. Her solicitor noted in court that Lewis Burton himself explicitly did not support the prosecution.
Right, that's key. She was released on bail, but the conditions were strict. She was prohibited from contacting Burton at all. And her trial was formally scheduled for March 4th, 2020. So she was just suspended in this legal limbo, facing a high-profile trial while already being emotionally fragile.
And this is the moment where the legal system and public opinion really clashed most violently, wasn't it? Flack's management launched this fierce criticism of the Crown Prosecution Service, the CPS. They called it, outrageously, a show trial, arguing it was fundamentally unjust, especially since Burton refused to support it.
And this specific conflict, it requires careful analysis. The management argued that going ahead with charges against a known, vulnerable public figure whose distress was documented was putting huge pressure on her for, they claimed, no reason other than public optics. They basically accused the CPS of prioritizing PR over pastoral care, over her well-being.
But the CPS, they had a robust legal rationale, didn't they? The chief prosecutor defended the decision. He stated that the law requires a prosecutor to proceed based on the evidence gathered by the police and the public interest test,
Right.
not based on the wishes of a potentially reluctant witness or what you think is popular. It's a foundational principle of the justice system, right? If enough evidence exists and the public interest demands it, often defined by how serious the alleged assault is, the prosecution goes ahead regardless of what the victim wants.
And a later internal review actually concluded that the decision to proceed with the trial was handled appropriately. It confirmed the CPS was operating within its legal mandate, even though that decision was tragically deeply unpopular and had devastating consequences. Just about a month and a half after that legal tension peaked, her situation was sort of underscored by this moment of profound irony.
What was that?
The day before her death, her ex-boyfriend, Lewis Burton, actually posted an affectionate Valentine's Day message to her on social media. It reflected maybe a glimmer of hope for reconciliation, or at least some continued connection between them.
God, that's heartbreaking. That hope was just so tragically short-lived. On February 15th, 2020, Caroline Flack was found dead in her flat in Stoke Newington, London. She was 40 years old.
The cause of death was confirmed as suicide by hanging.
And the official legal finding came about 6 months later. After a 2-day hearing, the coroner formally recorded a verdict of suicide. And they noted explicitly that she took her own life amid fears of the prosecution moving forward. That legal cloud, the impending trial date, they were directly cited as the trigger point for her final action.
And the tragic reverberations of that whole incident, they continued years later. Just in February 2023, the Metropolitan Police issued a formal apology to her mother, Christine.
Right, I remember that.
It was for failing to keep proper records related to that initial incident back in December 2019. And following that apology, her mother publicly stated her enduring belief. She believed Caroline would still be alive if she hadn't been charged with assault. She put the responsibility squarely on the legal process.
Wow. The immediate response from the television industry was, well, shock, wasn't it? And rapid difference. A scheduled The Love Island highlights episode on ITV2 was canceled straight away.
Yeah. And E4 pulled a Love Island sketch, one that featured her likeness from the 10th season of Robot Chicken out of respect.
When Love Island did return to air, the episode included a televised tribute to her. And ITV made sure that ads for the support charity Samaritans were broadcast during the breaks.
The tragedy just ignited this much wider, more systemic discussion about the mental health burden of reality TV itself.
Yeah, the context was just unavoidable. Flack's death was the third suicide linked directly to Love Island, following the former contestants Sophie Graydon and Mike Salasitis.
Right.
And this grim statistic immediately raised these intense, really necessary questions about the show's duty of care, the extreme pressure put on participants and hosts, and the relentless media harassment that just seemed to surround the whole franchise.
There were immediate public calls for Love Island to be canceled. Many people drew a specific parallel to the earlier cancellation of the Jeremy Kyle show after a participant died by suicide.
Yeah.
The argument was pretty clear. If a show's format repeatedly leads to such tragic outcomes, does it still have a social license to operate? It really shifted the focus from just personal tragedy to structural accountability within reality TV production.
And that conversation quickly escalated beyond just the TV show itself, didn't it? It went into the broader political sphere concerning media intrusion. Several prominent British politicians publicly criticized press outlets and social media coverage right after her death, basically saying the environment she faced was toxic and potentially fatal.
Yeah, and we have specific, quite powerful quotes from the source material that illustrate this political alarm. Daisy Cooper, a politician, stated that the principle in the UK is, "In Britain, we have trial by courts and not trial by media for a reason," she continued. Regardless of what took place, she should not have been hounded to death by tabloid newspapers desperate for clickbait.
That quote is so critical because it just identifies the core problem, doesn't it? The media's rush to judgment, the monetization of conflict.
Yeah.
It effectively created this parallel pretrial punishment that completely superseded the formal legal process.
Exactly. And other political figures, Lisa Nandy, Keir Starmer, Grant Shapps, they all weighed in, focusing on the failure of social media platforms to adequately control the harassment and bullying aimed at public figures.
So the political conversation really became focused on regulation. The collective argument from these senior figures seemed to be that if private companies, the tabloids, the social media giants couldn't police themselves ethically, then maybe the state needed to step in to provide a system of regulation and support for vulnerable people in the public eye.
And the public response completely mirrored this political outrage and demand for change. Her friend, Stephanie Davis, started a petition demanding new laws specifically focused on safeguarding celebrities and people in the public eye from relentless media harassment.
And that petition just exploded, didn't it? It quickly became this massive groundswell of public feeling, gathering over 500,000 signatures in just 1 week. It was a tangible measure of the collective grief and anger over the perceived role of the media in her death.
Absolutely. The lasting echoes of her life now, they seem heavily channeled through tributes that emphasize kindness and mental well-being, reflecting that powerful mural quote she championed.
Right. At the 2020 Brit Awards, Harry Styles wore a black ribbon. It was a quiet, respectful tribute to her memory.
We also see the continuation of her passions through charity work. Her ex-boyfriend, Andrew Brady, set up a fundraiser in her name for Mermaids, a charity supporting trans children and teenagers, where she was known to be really passionately supportive of during her life.
Yeah, that grounds her legacy in specific causes she cared about beyond the headline.
And the most enduring visual, maybe philosophical legacy, is that, quote, she popularized and often requoted herself. In 2021, that mural was painted in Wigan, featuring the phrase, "In a world where you can be anything, be kind."
It became such a rallying cry, didn't it? Against the very online and media cruelty that seemed to contribute to her downfall.
It really did. And her closest friends have worked tirelessly to keep her memory attached to active mental health advocacy. In 2021, friends, notably Ollie Murs included,
Yeah.
participated in the really strenuous Climb for Caroline charity event. They scaled 24 peaks in the Lake District in 24 hours to raise funds for the Samaritans.
Yeah.
And Murs specifically noted that exercise was a primary strategy she used for her own mental health management, making that endurance challenge a really fitting tribute.
And finally, the music festival, Flackstock, named in her honor. It held its first series of concerts in 2022. These ongoing events, they ensure her legacy is remembered not just as a tragedy, but as this proactive push for mental wellness, for community, and just for the simple act of trying to be kinder in a world that can be profoundly...
So having navigated this extraordinarily detailed story, the contrast just remains the most potent insight, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
On one side, you have the professional titan, the recipient of that record-shattering 120 points on Strictly, the host who resurrected and solidified Love Island as this national phenomenon, the trained musical theater performer who went back to the stage at the absolute height of her fame.
And then arrayed against all that brilliance is the documented reality of just immense long-term personal frailty. Those early battles with body image and self-harm, the emotional breakdown she was apparently enduring long before the charges even happened, and the overwhelming targeted media and legal scrutiny that her own management argued was crushing a vulnerable star. The source material just demands that we hold this tension, the extraordinary talent battling the crushing vulnerability in our minds at the same time.
Yeah. Our deep dive has taken us through the specific, factual narrative, laying bare the intensity of the scrutiny she faced. It documents the gravity of those legal charges, but it balances it against the profound systemic concerns raised not just by her friends, but by senior politicians about the conduct of the press and the relentless monetization of celebrity conflict.
Right. We saw the CPS operating within its legal mandate, but Flack's management and much of the public arguing for maybe an ethical mandate that should supersede legal duty when someone's mental health is clearly at stake.
Which raises this critical point for you, the listener, and really for society as a whole. Following her death, we saw this massive political response, this huge public outcry for fundamental changes in media regulation, new laws to safeguard people in the public eye. Now, given the sustained success of tribute events like Flackstock, which focuses specifically on community and well-being, and knowing she was actively working on a personal self-help book meant to guide others, what does all this tell us about the current public appetite for genuinely understanding the internal pressures faced by high-profile individuals?
Oh, that's a heavy question. Is the desire for entertainment still stronger than the demand for empathy? When we consume news about celebrity struggles, when we read those headlines about arrests or relationship troubles, how does this specific tragedy, which was so publicly tied to the media environment, inform our collective responsibility as consumers of that celebrity news?
That question is really the lingering consequence of this entire story, isn't it? It is absolutely something worth reflecting on deeply.